You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we're going to be summarising and analysing, I guess, in a way, Mikel Arteta's pre-Brighton press conference. Mikel Arteta, of course, faced the media earlier on today ahead of Arsenal's trip to the Amex Stadium at the weekend. Of course, we'll be bringing you a full preview of that fixture tomorrow. We'll be talking about the starting 11, what it is that Mikel Arteta may or may not do to accommodate for the absence of Granit Xhaka, among other things. Will Nicolas Pepe come back into the team? All good questions and all things that we're going to be discussing during that preview show. But for now, we're going to be reflecting on what Mikel Arteta has had to say to the media. I want to say a big hello to those of you currently joining us live. Hope you're all well. Hope you've all enjoyed your day so far. Hope you go on to have a very, very good evening too. Big hello to everybody who'll be watching this back later on. And of course, to those who are listening to it via the audio platforms. Don't forget, if you are an audio listener, please do leave us a review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. That really helps. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. And if you want to go one further by becoming a member, you can do so by clicking on the link in the description. You all know the drill by now. Right, let's kick off. Let's dive in to Mikel Arteta's press conference. And of course, he was talking about the fixture at the weekend. And I guess one of the best places to start really was his thoughts on Saturday's opponents, Brighton. This is what he had to say. It will be a really difficult game. They've been on a really good run. They're playing well and getting the results that they deserve. It's a really competitive match that we are looking ahead to, and we know the importance of it. So I think for Mikel Arteta, this is a big game in the sense of if he doesn't win it, there will be those dissenting voices again in the background that will then play down what happened last weekend and play down the progress that we've shown in the last few weeks. And I actually think that's quite unfair, because I think for me, if Arsenal were to go and get a point at Brighton, it would be respectable. It's not what I want. Obviously, I want Arsenal to go there and blow them away and take all 3 points. But this notion that Arsenal were going to go from being bottom of the table 3 weeks into the season to all of a sudden being able to string a run together where they win 4, 5, 6 Premier League games back to back, in my opinion, is unrealistic. So I think there's a middle ground to be found here. If we draw at Brighton, it doesn't mean that there's been no progress. Equally, if we win at Brighton, it still doesn't mean that everything has been fixed. So you need to find that middle ground here. And I think, this is going to be a very, very difficult encounter. He was asked about the fact that Arsenal did the double over Brighton last season, but Mikel Arteta stressed the point that it is a different season and that we shouldn't focus on that. And I completely agree. He went on to talk about Granit Xhaka. Of course, Granit Xhaka has been ruled out now for 3 months, which is a massive blow to Arsenal, and it's a massive blow to Mikel Arteta's plans. As I said right at the top of the show, it poses questions around who will come in the midfield to replace him. Will we see a slight tweak in the system that involves Martin Odegaard or Emil Smith Rowe dropping into midfield? Or will we see Albert Sambi-Lokonga come in as a like-for-like replacement? Not sure. But here's what he had to say on Granit Xhaka. He said, obviously, it's really bad news personally for Granit. He's had a couple of incidents already this season with COVID, with suspension, and now with a long-term injury. He went on to say he's a strong man and he will use this time to focus on other things. And I'm sure he'll be back in the right place when he's back. Obviously, he's a big player for us, someone who's really important, and he will be missed. Other players have to step in. He talked a little bit more about Xhaka. He said, first of all, it's obviously a significant injury, but he probably escaped an even worse injury than he could have had from the action, because that action for the cruciate ligament is a tricky one. It is what it is. His mentality is top. He knows what he needs to do now. Hopefully he can escape surgery as well. That is something that is really, really important. And after that, start preparing himself in the best possible way because time flies. So Mikel Arteta kind of trying to put a bit of a positive spin on the Xhaka injury in the sense of, yes, it's bad. Yes, it's going to keep him out for a long period of time, but it could have been a lot worse, which is what a lot of us were saying when we heard that initial diagnosis, didn't we? Or the reported diagnosis, which was 6 to 8 weeks. There's been lots and lots of questions with regards to Bernd Leno over the last 24 hours. Of course, Bernd Leno made those comments, didn't he, to a German outlet where he said that he'd perhaps consider his position in the winter, that it hadn't been, or he suggested that it hadn't been explained to him why he'd been left out of the side or why he'd been taken out of that number one position. And although Mikel Arteta was almost kind of, well, they tried to bait him out on Leno's comments and get him to kind of really condemn the player. He didn't do that. And I thought he answered it in true Mikel Arteta politician style by saying everybody has to raise the level, and that's really positive and is happening in different positions. You can see when players are coming in now, they are fully ready to take the place. Now it's going to happen with Granit, and before it happened when he was suspended, and it's happening in other positions. Players are coming up and showing that they are ready because the way they train and the way they play is top. So after they get rewarded when they have minutes. So Mikel Arteta, speaking in generalisms there, if we're being completely honest, he wanted to talk about the fact that competition within the group is healthy, that players have shown that they can come in and backfill positions vacated by their colleagues for whatever reason. And that's pretty much all he had to say on the whole Leno thing. But as we said yesterday on the social club, and I don't want to get too deep into it again because it's not really the time or the place, but it does feel like those comments from Bernd Leno were unnecessary. It does feel like they can only possibly be counterproductive. And I think we've heard a lot of rumours over the last 12 months or so about Bernd Leno wanting out, seeking a move away and hoping to achieve that in the very near future. And I guess these kind of comments just make you feel like that is edging ever closer. He was asked about Ben White because, of course, Ben White started the season with that trip to Brentford, didn't play very well, to be honest. Had a difficult night, obviously had Pablo Mari next to him, which wasn't ideal, I didn't think. But, Brentford showed against Liverpool last weekend that when they're on top of their game and when they play that way, they can cause pretty much anybody problems. Even Van Dijk and Matip, who are two very, very good central defenders, two very experienced central defenders, really struggled to cope with Brentford and their physicality and their aerial threat. So I guess for me, now looking back at that Ben White performance, it doesn't look so bad when I've just seen two top centre-halves literally suffer the same issues at the hands of those two. So, yeah, he started the season poorly, had a couple of poor moments at Burnley. You can't deny that back pass from which Burnley were initially awarded a penalty until the VAR stepped in. And then, of course, since then, things have looked a bit better from Ben White, you've got to say. And the more he plays with Gabriel, the more at home he looks, the more comfortable he looks. And fingers crossed he'll only get better. But this is what Mikel had to say on Ben White. He said, well, I've been really impressed with how he handles the pressure and how he's handled the situation of coming through the Euros and the paying of the big fee, the composure and the calmness that he's shown. As well, his willingness to learn, to improve, because he's realized that he's still really young, still in the development process, and there are things that he can improve on. We're already enjoying our time together, and we have to continue like that. So Mikel Arteta, full of praise for Ben White, although not dismissing the fact that even though Arsenal paid such a significant transfer fee, £50 million to bring Ben White to the club in the summer, he is by no means at this point the finished article. And I think Mikel Arteta's tried to get that message across actually at every given opportunity. And it's designed to try and buy a little bit more patience from the fans. It's designed to try and give the fans a little bit of a reality check as to where Ben White actually is this day and age. And I said it during the summer, and I said it on numerous occasions. The signing of Ben White for £50 million is not because you were getting £50 million worth of a defender right now. A lot of that fee was due to the potential of Ben White, and potential doesn't always, get fulfilled. That's the reality of it. So you will overpay, and you will look at this player further down the line, and then be able to make your judgment and your assessment as to whether he's actually been worth that money. But at this moment in time, yeah, there were probably better centre-backs that you could have gone out and spent £50 million on. But this is a signing for the long term. It's a signing for, the future of the football club. And he is seen as somebody that can be a big part of that future. So, as I say, big fee, a lot of money. There's been some shaky moments at the start of the season, but Mikel Arteta taking the opportunity to really reiterate that point that even in his eyes, even in Ben White's own eyes, he is far from being the finished article. Now, obviously, Mikel Arteta has been nominated as the Premier League Manager of the Month. And I don't think many people saw that coming when you look at how Arsenal started the campaign. So, first of all, congratulations to Mikel for being nominated. Hope he wins it. But on that subject, he said it's the beauty of this sport. We all know that. We all depend on results, and perspective changes quickly in both ways. So you always have to be on your toes. He was then asked whether this would be a roller coaster season. He said, hopefully not. That's what we want to avoid. We don't want that. We want to be stable and consistent in our performances, which will then in turn lead to results. We know this league is competitive. Anybody can beat you and anybody can put you under difficulty. You have to be on your toes because any detail can change at the moment. He was then asked a little bit about the Ben White and Gabriel partnership, where he talked about them playing really well together at the weekend. And he mentioned that the understanding and the cohesion between the two and the backline in general is getting better. He said it will keep improving. He said that we have different partnerships that will work, but certainly these two guys played very well at the weekend. Now, Emil Smith Rowe was also on the agenda. He was asked how good Emil Smith Rowe can be. How good can he go on to be? What's his kind of ceiling, I guess, was the gist of that question. He was then compared to Jack Wilshere. The question was, how does he compare to Jack Wilshere? And this, for me, is just a lazy question. Like, it's one of those questions where I just think to myself, why do we need to compare Emil Smith Rowe and Jack Wilshere? Like, why? Why do they have to be similar? Why does there have to be similarities? Why do they have to be put in the same bracket? I'll tell you why. Because somebody wants to make a clickbait headline that says Mikel Arteta on the next Jack Wilshere. Mikel Arteta identifies Arsenal starlet as the next Jack Wilshere. That's the kind of clickbait headline that you would see on a news site over the next 24 hours if Mikel Arteta got sucked into this question. And thankfully, he didn't, because it was a poor question, in my opinion. He says, it's exciting that people are seeing our academy with the potential to produce big players for this club. It's already a joy that they believe that, because we believe they have the potential to do that. And now that potential has to become reality and be fulfilled, which is kind of what I was saying a little bit earlier on about Ben White. But the Jack Wilshere comparison is just so lazy. What is every player that comes through Arsenal's youth system ever now for the next 20, 30 years going to be compared to Jack Wilshere? Emil Smith Rowe plays nothing like Jack Wilshere either. He was asked about the COVID vaccinations thing again. Are clubs, trying to, are clubs going to take action and sit down with their players again and talk about the COVID vaccination? Because we know there's a large proportion of Premier League players at the moment that don't want the vaccine, just like there's a large proportion of people in our communities that don't want the vaccine. It is the player's choice at the end of the day. And Mikel keeps saying, we've tried it in various ways. We've tried to advise. We've tried to, protect the players. We've tried to have their best interests at the center of everything that we do. But he did reiterate the point that it is the player's decision. And it's not something that Arsenal can force people to do. The fear is that, if as the winter comes, there are likely to be more COVID cases, which in turn increases the risk of us being without key players during key moments in the season, which obviously is not ideal. But you can't force somebody to take it, and this is the issue, isn't it? The last bit I just wanted to touch on before we take a few of your questions and thoughts from the live chat was with regards to Ainsley Maitland-Niles, because he was basically asked if Ainsley Maitland-Niles would be the man to come in or would be one of the front runners to replace Granit Xhaka during this period of absence. And this is what Mikel had to say. He said, Ainsley is certainly one of the options. We've used him quite a lot since the start of the season. He's doing really well, and I'm pleased with what I've seen from him. So, look, Mikel not ruling it out, but also not saying that this is Maitland-Niles' time to step up, and not offering anything in the way of kind of guarantees or promises around, the number of minutes he's going to get. He has been used quite a bit, I think, at times this season in the centre of midfield. For example, when he came on at Burnley, I thought he was very good. I thought he was very competent. I thought he made a big difference and played a huge role in us actually seeing that game out. But equally, when I saw him against AFC Wimbledon, for example, I didn't think he was convincing. I didn't think he was all that convincing against Norwich either. So, it's a hard one with Maitland-Niles, because on the one hand, you're thinking a lot of these roles or a lot of these performances, especially the one at Burnley, it's a bit of a cameo. And does that cameo appearance that you put in for 15, 20 minutes actually reflect your level? I'm not sure that it does. I think that the better barometers of where Ainsley Maitland-Niles is as a centre midfielder are the performances against Norwich, the performance against AFC Wimbledon. And in neither of those games did I come away from thinking, yeah, we've really missed out here. Was he bad? No. But was he good? Was he good enough to force his way into the kind of front of the queue now that Granit Xhaka is going to be missing? I don't think so. So I hope he can prove me wrong. I hope that we'll see in time that actually Ainsley Maitland-Niles could go on and be a very competent central midfielder. But it just, and again, he's one of our own, as people like to put it, which obviously helps. But I'm just not sure at this stage that he's at that level, and I've not seen enough yet this season to change my mind or to kind of make me even, to be honest, reconsider my initial opinion at the start of the season, which was that Maitland-Niles is not a central midfielder, not at Arsenal level anyway. Right, let's take some of your questions from the live chat box. I'd love to hear from you guys. Make sure in the meantime you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. It really, really does help. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know some of your questions, or fire over some of your questions rather, and I'll pick some of those up for the last sort of 5-10 minutes of the stream. We'll kick off with this one from Don Saki, who says, "Hi Harry, what do you expect Arsenal will do during the January transfer window? Do you expect us to buy or sell in that window?" Honestly, I'm not sure. I always like to think that the majority of your business should be done in the summer, and January should be a little bit of a kind of emergency window whereby you may be experiencing an issue. You get to the halfway point in the season and it gives you the opportunity to try and address that. It's more difficult to prize players away in January because it's more difficult for those looking to replace to get their business done. There tends to be less willingness to do business at that part of the year. So I don't think there'll be major movement in January. But the big concern for me is the centre of midfield. Now, you're talking about Granit Xhaka not returning until January. You're talking about an African Cup of Nations, which will see Thomas Partey and Mohamed El Neni most likely travelling, which leaves us incredibly short. So I wonder if Mikel will look to add a midfielder in, because Xhaka might be back by then, but how long will it take him off the back of this expected 3-month absence to get back up to speed and back up to the level at which he needs to be to really boss and marshal our midfield, especially without Thomas Partey alongside him? So I don't expect anything major, but I suspect that Arsenal will be keeping a close eye on that midfield situation and keeping a close eye on the market to see if any opportunities present themselves, because that is an area of concern for me for sure. Ridi Sarkar says, Harry, do you think we need Marco Asensio after today's links with him? Look, admittedly, I'm not massive on Spanish football. I used to watch it an awful lot when I was younger. When it was on Sky Sports, I was a big La Liga fan. But as the years have gone by, I've kind of rekindled my love affair with Serie A, and that's seen me kind of drift that way. So I haven't seen an awful lot of Marco Asensio lately. But from what I do know about him, I'm not really sure he's the type of player that we're looking for at the moment. I think that we do need a more traditional central midfield player. I feel like Marco Asensio is somebody who likes to play in a more advanced role, or maybe from the left or right. I think we probably need somebody in a similar profile to Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey, in the sense that their starting position is just that little bit deeper. So no, not one that I would be pursuing. I got to be honest. Amandeep says, "Are we one Partey injury away from tragedy?" We absolutely are. I said this, on yesterday's show when we were reacting to that news about Granit Xhaka, that I did feel like we were, one injury away from a disaster. And I actually think we're not in disaster mode right now while Thomas Partey's fit, but we're not in a comfortable position when it comes to that midfield, because I can't get it out of my head how frequently Thomas Partey's broken down. And when you've seen somebody break down as often as he has, there is that bit of reservation in your mind. And now we're in a place where we need to wrap him up in cotton wool even more so. And that worries me. You felt like we were finally at the point where we were going to have our first choice midfield of Xhaka and Partey ready to move and push forward. We're not there now because of the injury that Xhaka sustained. Will Lokonga come in? Maybe. Is he capable? Yeah, he's capable in the long term of going on to be a very, very good midfield player. But I'd be lying if I said in the interim I'm not a little bit concerned about how we're going to fill in Xhaka's position. Let's see what else we've got. Abdallah says, Harry, not Arsenal related, but he says, Harry, who do you prefer out of Gerrard and Lampard as ballers, not managers? Because I know you've got a Lampard agenda as a manager. I think Frank Lampard's an awful football manager. I'll be honest, I do. He's a bit like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He got a job based on sentiment, based on his affiliation and relationship with a football club rather than on merit. And I think that was proven to be correct when, he, despite the big investment in the second season, really struggled and eventually lost his job. And then the difference between the level that his Chelsea side were at and the level that they're at now under Thomas Tuchel proves that the manager was a lot of the issue. As players, I preferred Steven Gerrard because I felt he brought more to a team overall. I think Frank Lampard was an excellent advanced midfielder, was very, very good at popping up at the right time, making late runs into the penalty area, and was a cool finisher, you got to say. But for me, Steven Gerrard just offered that little bit more. He was more complete. He would be able to play in those deeper positions. He would be able to play in the advanced role just behind the striker, combined brilliantly, didn't he, with Luis Suarez that season where Brendan Rodgers cocked up the league title. At times in his career, Steven Gerrard was playing out on the right-hand side as well when he had a little bit more of an engine on him to get up and down. I think Gerrard was the more complete player, but obviously that's one that you could have either way. Let's see what we've got here. Ipuedo says that, Harry, do you think a 4-3-3 will be better suited against Brighton than a 4-2-3-1 system? I'm not really sure, is my honest answer at this moment in time. I'm going to be putting together the preview show for tomorrow, so come and join us live 12:15 p.m. right here on the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel. It'll be available in podcast format from 1 o'clock. I don't know yet, and I'm going to sit down and have a good think about this one and really I want to look a little bit more at the way Brighton play and some of their patterns of play, and then I'll come to my conclusion on that. So I will answer that for you, but I'll answer it properly for you rather than giving you a half-assed answer now on tomorrow's preview show. Let's take a couple more questions. Let's see what we've got. Let's take this one from Jonathan. He says, during the summer, the new midfielder I wanted most was Fabian Ruiz. It doesn't seem realistic now considering how well Napoli are doing. I know you're a fan of Serie. Thoughts on the player? I'm a massive fan of Fabian Ruiz. I think he's a brilliant midfield player. He's that midfield metronome kind of player that I've been talking about Arsenal probably needing to sign all summer. So yeah, I'd be keen on that. Listen, Napoli are flying at the top of Serie A at the moment under Spalletti. There's a new manager bounce. Do I expect it to continue? I don't expect them to win the Scudetto. I expect them to qualify for the Champions League though. But Napoli and Italian football in general financially is in a very, very tough spot. It's in a very difficult spot. And it's why I believe the Premier League clubs have this huge advantage now in the transfer market, because while the revenue streams were cut significantly for those overseas, the revenue streams have been cut here too for the big clubs, but not as much, because the difference and the disparity between the Premier League TV rights, for example, and the Serie A TV rights is huge. And that leads to the Premier League clubs having almost the funds to be able to go out and bully clubs into selling some of their most prized assets. So if Arsenal really wanted Fabian Ruiz, I'm sure that they could, if they stumped up the right amount of money, make them sell, just because of where they are from a financial standpoint. But you're absolutely right to say that Napoli are flying at the moment, and it's probably a really exciting time to be in Naples. So maybe it's not at the forefront of his mind, but as I say, I do believe clubs like Arsenal, the Premier League clubs, the big boys especially, have the power financially and the muscle to go and bully some of these clubs into selling some of their prize assets, whether deep down they want to or not. Let's take one more question. I'll take this one from Oliver before we wrap up. He says, do you think what Leno is doing now is what he did when Martinez took the number 1 shirt, but Arteta was spineless and decided to stick with him and let Martinez go? But this time they have balls. No, look, Bernd Leno said repeatedly, didn't he, after Emi Martinez moved on, that he never felt that he was not the number 1 at the football club, that he never felt that his position was in jeopardy. And actually, he was the number 1 until he picked up that injury at Brighton. Once he picked up that injury, Emi Martinez stepped in. He did a very, very good job. But let's remember why he was brought in. He was brought in because of an injury, not because Bernd Leno was playing poorly. Now, there have always been, for me, issues around Bernd Leno, his distribution, the failure or inability to dominate his penalty area, and various other bits that I've never quite warmed to when it comes to Bernd Leno. But this wasn't a case whereby the manager looked at Bernd Leno and went, I don't think you're playing well enough. And out of choice, he put Emi Martinez in. Now, Martinez did come in, did a fantastic job. Martinez, and I know this because I've sat in on an interview with Emi Martinez, told the football club that he did not want to compete for the number 1 squad, for the number 1 spot. He wanted to know that he would be the number 1. He felt that his performances in that short period of time at the back end of that season was so good, was so strong, that he had deserved or earned the right to be selected ahead of Bernd Leno week in, week out. Arsenal didn't see it that way. Arsenal saw it as, well, yes, you've come in and done well, but actually the reason Bernd was out was because he was injured, not because your level of performance has surpassed his, in our view. And therefore, they wouldn't give him guarantees. They wouldn't promise him that he would start matches week in, week out. Add to that, he was a sellable asset. Add to that, Aston Villa were interested and tabled an offer. And there you go. That's why that transfer come about. I think with Arteta, he obviously wanted to completely rip out this squad and start again. Okay, I think the fact that we have turned over so many players in his tenure is clear evidence of that. It's evidence of how badly he felt this squad had been assembled and how many players he needed to, move out and shift out to be able to get to close to where he wanted to be. And I just think that we're at that point now with Bernd Leno where he's given him ample opportunity, and now he feels as though, based on what he's seen so far, that Bernd Leno is not the man to take us forward. Not because Bernd Leno is not a good goalkeeper, not because Bernd Leno is not a wonderful shot stopper, but because there are facets or elements to Bernd Leno's game that just do not fit in with the vision, just do not fit in with what it is Mikel Arteta is trying to deliver at Arsenal Football Club. And sometimes you have to just cut your losses and move people on. Aaron Ramsdale getting opportunities will benefit Arsenal in the long term. Bernd Leno's got 1 year left on his contract and will probably leave next summer for free unless somebody tables a bid in the interim. So picking Bernd Leno every single week would not be benefiting you and your team in the long term. Equally, for Mikel Arteta to make decisions like that, it probably means that he knows that he is in a safe place as Arsenal boss, that he has been afforded some time by the club, and that even if the results in the short term are not 100% up to scratch, he will get away with it because he is building for the future. Not even saying that's the right approach for a football club to take. Not even saying that I'm completely, totally happy with it. But it's very clear, isn't it, that that is the route that Arsenal are going down. And that's why we're in the situation where we are. We've got a young goalkeeper who's come into the club, who's impressed right away. And we've got another goalkeeper who's done well, let's be honest, made a few mistakes, but has made some match-winning saves as well over the years, but doesn't represent the future. Who are you going to protect? Who are you going to give more minutes to? Who are you going to prioritise? And I think it's as simple as that with the Ramsdale / Leno situation. This is a lovely question from Omar. Thank you, mate. He says, off topic, how's the little one getting on? She's good. She's good, man. Thank you for asking. She's much calmer than my son was, which is great. She sits in the little chair, bouncer, whatever you want to call it, let me watch the Champions League last night completely uninterrupted. So she's already winning me over. Right. I am going to leave it there, I think, just because I am a little bit pushed for time. But we'll be recording our Arsenal women's podcast a little bit later on this afternoon. Myself and Casey Bourne will be discussing not just one, but two impressive victories for the Arsenal women. That big win over Manchester City in the WSL last weekend. And then we'll be talking about the win in the North London derby in the Women's FA Cup. So looking forward to bringing you that one. It will be out at around about 5:15 p.m. this evening. So keep your eyes peeled. Make sure you tune in for some excellent insight from Casey, as always. I'll be back very, very soon with more. I'm off to watch a stand-up comedian tonight, which should be great fun. But I'll be back tomorrow, as I say, with that full Brighton and Arsenal preview, as well as my Premier League preview for the weekend, which will be dropping a little bit later. Done that at the beginning of the season. Lots of you commented about how much you enjoyed it, but then I've not been able to do them due to a number of reasons, but I'm going to make a point of doing one this week because there's some great games coming up. So I'll catch you all very, very soon. Until next time, take care of yourselves and stay safe. All the best. Ciao.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.